Climbers, you want success as an artist. You'll need fans. Hold on. Climbers, if you want success as an artist, you're going to need fans. To get fans, you'll have to get their attention. The secret to gaining their attention is hook points. What are hook points? You're going to learn that today, and I'll show you how to create them. Welcome to the Climb! This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. Leverage is what you're going to need in today's music industry. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. That's the good news. Bad news is you got to do it yourself, but you can. You can reach the audience. You can show them the music. They can get turned on to you. You can create a business, and then when that happens, you have leverage. And when that happens, they come to you and you're on your way. That's why we called it the Climb, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. That's a backronym from my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter. Also happens to be an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by, I don't know, some marginal artists you probably haven't heard of, like, Randy Travis, Lady A, Eric, who's Monday Morning Church? I'm
Alan Jackson.
farting. Alan Jackson. You might have heard of them, right? You might have heard of these songs, Monday Morning Church, for crying out loud. And what I love about Brent, though, is, listen, man, he shares all this with you. He's helping songwriters like you turn pro by revealing how you write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then on a regular basis, he connects you with the pros. You get opportunities to make relationships that can further your career, and that's how this works. You can find Brent at songwritingpro.com. Once again, songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. Yeah, it's complicated, but Johnny knows all the big words. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production singular, no S, and there is no S because there is no other Johnny D.
Brother, what's going on?
Man, my chair is squeaking. I'm gonna have to try not to move for the next 30 minutes. So Ren has less to edit. Sorry, Ren.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. It
just started. Once you hit the red button, it just started. I promise it didn't make a noise before then.
That's funny,
I'm good,
dude.
I'm good.
I got Josh, my artist Josh Roy, is a lot going on this month, so I gotta shout him out here at the beginning of the show. On the 24th, 25th, and 26th, he's playing all 3 days at the Party in the Desert Festival with a number of different headliners at this festival, the biggest of which I think is Lainey Wilson. And there's an opportunity, I'm putting it out there, I'm not sure what will happen, but there's an opportunity where we might get him to go up on stage with Lainey and sing the male parts on the duets that she has. She's got a couple duets, like Wait in the Truck, and
that's cool.
That's cool. So we're flying out there for that. It's like, really exciting. We've got like this RV with his manager, and sort of, it's just like, I mean, it's out in the middle, it's in Wickenburg, dude, in the middle of the damn desert,
Yeah.
And so that's fun. And then actually next week we're going to hang out with him because he's coming into town, and for the song Angels Cry, which we have, I had my brilliant friend Lala Deaton arrange like the second verse of this song. Kind of takes you to church a little bit, and it's a patriotic song, but the chorus is also a little churchy. It's I believe in the right to pray, and the one who gives and takes away, and when I stand up tall, when old glory flies, and so it's very sort of like in that mode. And I was hearing like a gospel choir. I'm like, we can do a gospel choir on this. And so I had Lala, who is just a machine and a brilliant arranger. I said, can you arrange this for me just in the second verse and the second chorus? I want to see if this is going to suck. Is it going to go to Cheeseville, or is it going to be cool? You know what I mean? And she's like, yeah. And so she went and did the arrangement, and we talked. We had like 2 meetings. I'm like, here's what I want. Here's how I kind of want it to go. So I was giving her like a framework for what I wanted, but it was her job to like arrange it and make it work. And all the altos, the baritones, the And so then she sends me back a recording where she stacked, because she's a brilliant singer too. She stacks
Yeah.
up all the tracks, so it doesn't sound like a choir, but you can hear the arrangement. Every single line
Yeah.
is there with one voice, and then the idea would be we would take that arrangement and go in and record a gospel choir. So that's what we did, and we're going into actually going into Kent Wells' studio. Dolly's producer is a friend of
Yeah.
mine. We're going in on Monday evening, and I got the arrangements back. We did like the recordings. I sort of peppered it into the track, and I was like, "Oh, this. Not only does this work, this is going to make this like freaking epic. It's just going to
Cool.
make it an epic song." So I'm super stoked about that. I've never produced or recorded a gospel choir before, so I'm
Mhm.
really just excited about that, man. I haven't like I don't know. I'm just Jones and sharing a win. Like I'm just like, yeah, I'm so excited.
Nice.
So, and
Nice.
Josh will be, if you're in Nashville, by the way, Josh will be Wednesday. When does this drop? This is probably going to
This
drop
is
right
gonna
before that,
drop
huh?
on the 14th, so the day before.
Okay, so Josh will be in town tomorrow at the Freak Show at the local in Nashville, which is the high end curated writer night. So if you're in town, stop on by, come and have a cocktail and see what's going on.
I plan on being there too, so
Brand will be
come
there too.
on.
The Climb show will be there in
That's
full,
right.
like the both of us. So anyway, well today, dude, we're going to talk about something that's like super super important in marketing. And I've jonesed off this book that I read called Hook Point: How to Stand Out in a 3-Second World by Brendan Kane. And I got through 2 chapters of this book, and I had to write. I had to do show prep, because I'm like, okay, climbers need to know this.
Yeah,
So that's what we're going to get into today. But real quick, let's take care of some business. Join
that's
the
right.
Climb community at facebook.com/climb facebook.com/groups/ the Climb community. You have to ask to be let in. We let everybody in. Please come and join us. This is an active community.
Mhm.
Um, where they're helping each other. There's places for you to tell us about your gigs, for you to tell us about your new music, for you to tell us about your wins, a meeting you got coming up, a video you're going to shoot, whatever. We want to hear all about it. There's a place for everything, and everything goes in its place. And you've got peers, and there's connections being made through marketing. There's connections being made with writers like overseas, getting together and having success and getting syncs and making money and moving forward,
Yep,
all as a result of the love and the attention um and I think the energy that these people put into this group.
we
And
take
so
full
we're real
credit.
proud of that, and we want you to be a part of it, right? So
That's right.
um what are some wins? We share the wins all the time, Brian. What
Yes,
up?
we share the New Heights post every Wednesday morning, so it's okay if you share a win in there on a day that isn't Wednesday, but just find the New Heights post and share it as a comment there. First one we have is from climber Brian Williams. Says apparently he is. And I'll just read this is from NSAI. Congratulations to this year's lyric category finalist for the 23rd annual song contest presented by Bluebird Cafe in CMT. I think the winners will be announced by the time this comes out, but Brian is one of the 2 finalists in the lyric category. So awesome, and good luck, Brian. Hope that goes your way, man. That's awesome. Let's see.
Congratulations, Brian.
Yes, we have another one. Buddy Lee Daubertine says had a song that Michael August shared with his team. So Michael August, we actually had him as a Play for Publisher guest over at Songwriting Pro earlier this year. And Buddy Lee, I think this was through a different avenue, but he got a hold of Michael and shared a song with him that Michael dug and shared with his team. So good job, Buddy. And there's some others on there. So congrats to y'all and keep on climbing.
Yeah, and today is March 8th that we're recording this,
Yes.
and if I'm not mistaken, I could be one day up, but I'm pretty sure today is Buddy Lee Daubertine's birthday. I think I
Well,
saw
man.
that in Facebook.
If so, happy birthday. If not,
Happy
happy
birthday,
birthday
Buddy
when
Lee.
it's
If
your
we're
birthday.
if we're a day off, if we're a day early, happy early birthday. If we're a day late, happy belated birthday. But
Right. Either way, this is dropping next week. So
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, so it'll be belated for you. But I mean, I'm telling you, we're recording it on this day, so today, like
there we
love.
go.
But anyway, all right. So listen, share the podcast with a friend. That's the best thing you can do. People need this information, other artists, other musicians, certainly people on your team. Turn them on to this.
Mhm.
There's knowledge here, there's proximity here, there's stuff that's going to help you get ahead. Share it. That's the best way you can do to honor us, and make sure you follow the podcast or subscribe to it so you don't miss an episode. If you look at an episode and you decide that's not for you, that's one thing. But we want to make
Mhm.
sure you get to make the choice and you know and you're
That's
aware
right.
that it's there, right?
That's right. That's right.
All right, so let's get into it. We got a lot to cover here. You
I like
know,
the title of the book, Hook Points. That has me intrigued already.
yeah, this is the book. So listen, I'm ripping this directly off from this, and it's just fantastic. Here's what it looks like. Where my staff is in the process of migrating this whole podcast over to YouTube. By the way, so you're going to be able to see us and hear us if you
Mhm.
choose to consume it that way. So
Which is
I'm
why I have a
saying that
shirt
because
on.
I'm holding this book up to the camera so you can see it, but it's going to be a while before it's on YouTube, right? We're I don't know how far we are through the whole, but all of the episodes from the last
Right.
7 years in
That's
March, right?
crazy. Over 500 episodes, 7
It's
years.
insane.
We've been
Congrats
at
to
this
you,
a
my
minute.
friend. Congrats
Good
to
job
y'all.
hanging in there, Johnny.
Yeah, I'm just genuinely grateful to always get to do this with you and share the different things we're trying to do to get ahead and to improve with each other
Mhm.
and I'm grateful to have you as a partner, buddy. I want to tell you
Thank
that
you.
I
Likewise. Likewise.
love you. All right, so man, I get to work with like really good indie artists that are important, and they know
Mhm.
what they're doing. They know how to make the donuts. They're professional. They make really competitive donuts.
Yeah.
Um, a few of these artists even know like why they're doing it, right?
Mhm.
Like they really have that. They're that far along on their journey. They're that self-aware. If you think about Simon Sinek's "Start with Why,"
Yeah.
but even when artists have clarity in these areas, which means they're way down their path on their artist journey,
Mhm.
they often struggle to maintain a potential audience's attention long enough to get them that audience to learn about the artist or the song or the brand. And when I say this, I'm even meaning major label artists. Like the major
Mhm.
labels are having problems with this too.
Yeah.
So to get their attention, you have to adapt your promotion to capture their attention, or you're going to lose.
Mhm.
Period. We see over 5,000 ads a day.
That's crazy.
5,000 promotions a day. So even what worked brilliantly 6 months ago
Mhm.
does not work today. And so you have to be constantly innovating. And that's where the hook point is. Okay.
Mhm.
So, there's no shortage of generational, amazing, life changing artists out in the world. We just don't know about them because they fail to achieve the success that they aspire to,
Mhm.
or the success that they're capable of and worthy of,
Mhm.
because they can't talk about or communicate what they do effectively in
They
the right
haven't
moment.
cut through the noise.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So, again, I'm going to repeat that. There's no shortage of amazing generational life artists, and you're one of them that are out in the world. It's just you're failing to achieve the success that you need in growing your audience and cutting through the noise because you don't know how to communicate what it is that you do effectively. And I think most artists think that as long as they have good art, it'll find its own audience, and that's what
Mhm.
they've been told, right?
Yeah.
But that's not true.
That's how
It,
it
that, that,
seems, that's how it appears, right? I heard
yeah,
good music and it found me. Look at that. It happens.
that's right. If
Right.
that was the case, and all the record labels with all the money who get to sign all the best artists because they're the record labels and they have all the money, they wouldn't have promo departments.
No, they would not.
95% of your record budget would not go to promo. It would
Mhm.
go to making more music because it's just good music, and as long as it's good, it'll sell, and as long as it sells and it finds its own audience, we don't need to spend any money, any time, any blood, sweat, and tears and creative energy trying to figure out how to sell it. It sells itself, right? Wrong. Wrong. So,
Right.
if you want the music to do the talking, if you want the music to be heard, and if you believe that when the music does the talking, that people are going to fall in love with you, I believe that's true as well. They will fall in love with you just as soon as someone gets to listen to it,
Yeah.
right? And so what you have to understand here is in the marketing world, in the promotion world, which is a huge, huge, huge part of what you are trying to do as an artist when you're trying to bring your music to the market. It's promotion, and I think it's lost on artists because they care so much about the music that they don't understand that people care about themselves, not your brand, not your
Mhm.
song. And so if you're
They're
constantly
tuned
putting
in. You know what radio station they're tuned into?
their own
WIIFM. WIIFM. You know
that's
what that
right.
stands for?
What?
What's in it for me?
The What's in it for me FM.
They're
That's
they're
right.
tuned into WIIFM.
That's
Everybody
right.
is. What's in it for me?
That's perfect. I love that. I'm stealing that. So if you're constantly putting like your brand and your song in the spotlight,
Mhm.
potential fans are going to tune you out.
Mhm.
And here's a great illustration of that. You ever been on a date where the other person constantly just talking about themselves?
Man, I've been that person. I can think of one time, and that's not a good memory, and it wasn't a good
Yeah.
day either.
And
So,
you just were embarrassed at yourself, right? Like you're
like,
just
oh
like,
my
"Oh,
gosh.
shut up. Why can't I shut up?" Right?
Right.
It's the quintessential horrible date. And what happens, think about how dating happens, right? Dating is a one-to-one exchange. You go out to dinner, it's you and this other person. It's not this other person and a boatload of your friends and a boatload of their friends, and that's the date. That might be where you meet, but there's no crowd that's going to help factor you in there. It's one to one. And when it's down to one, it's about what are you going to do for me?
Mhm.
Right? It's different than being on stage where you're the most famous person in the room at that time,
Yeah.
and everybody has no choice but to pay attention to you. That is a broadcast exchange. That's a different exchange,
Mhm.
right? So the way that you have success on stage and dominate an audience on stage is a formula that you understand, that you work, that hopefully you continue to craft, but it is not the same thing that you can do in a one-to-one exchange. That won't work
Mhm.
because that becomes look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And it has the opposite effect, right? If you're just on stage and behaving that way on stage, commanding the attention, doing all the talking, never letting anybody, from the audience come into your show, but you're doing that on a one-to-one date, well, you're an asshole.
Right.
Right? I mean, so
Mhm.
think about how like totally acceptable, totally works, totally what we not only acceptable, what we expect
Mhm.
of you to be a good performer on a stage, and then you got to behave differently on a date, right? And so that's what this is about here. So if you're behaving like this to promote your music and your artist brand, you're doomed. And artists need to focus on how they can add value to their audiences.
Mhm. I was funny. I was just to back this up. This thought I was looking back over hacking music from
Huh?
our friends John Pashad and Wade Sutton. That we had them
Yeah.
on a long time ago talking about this book. It's available on Amazon and stuff. But I was looking back through that, and it was talking about performance. It said aspiring artists focus, try to put all the focus on themselves and their music, but successful artists put the focus on their fans. That's what made
Yes.
Taylor huge. Was the
Yeah.
fan
In
focus.
fact, to that point in this book, Hook Point, Brendan Kane, the author of this book, was one of the first people on the business digital end that was very frickin' responsible for a huge part of Taylor Swift's success on digital early on in her career. They hired him. They hired Brendan
Oh, there we go.
to do some of this stuff, and it's like this is a good read, man. I'm not shilling for the book, but there's a lot of amazing stuff in here that he did in the music industry that's pretty cool. And I want to get your marketing and promotion chops and that muscle built up in the same way that Brent and I try so hard to get through Song Title Challenge, to get that muscle
Mhm.
developed and working, right?
Mhm.
So it's not enough to have great art. We work so hard as artists to adapt and to improve and to become better craftsmen of a song, of the art of making a record, of a live performance. It's so three-dimensional, it's so sophisticated. And then to have all of that at a place where you've grown and you've become seriously competitive, right? Like you're a
Mhm.
force to be reckoned with, and then to not be able to drive that beautiful car that you built around the block and show it off simply because you think that that's all it is.
Mhm.
You're missing the other point, right? That having the great art and a great performance is enough. It's not. If you look at Guns N' Roses again, like, you can't argue Appetite for Destruction, whether you love Guns N' Roses or hate Guns N' Roses. That record was so good. That art was so good. It remains the biggest selling debut album from an artist in the history of the music business. 30 million records sold,
Wow.
debut record. But the record was a stiff for the
Mhm.
first year because they couldn't get it in front of people. So stop thinking it's all about the quality of the art. Yes, you have to have quality art, but quality art has absolutely nothing to do with getting people to experience it.
Mhm.
So it's really only quality art if someone thinks it's quality art. And how can they think it's quality art if they haven't experienced the art?
Right. It is
Right. So how do
subjective.
you,
It is subjective. How are
it's
you going to subject them to your art?
exactly. Right? How they have to hear, and not just once. There's a dip. Like the next episode, I'm already starting to do show prep on. Is we're going to go down just a deep dive. But this is going to be like super super candy, like super ear candy. But just I'm going to start asking you questions, Brent, and you're going to guess. Like, okay, is this market penetration or is it exposure? And
Okay.
we're going to talk about that. But that's next episode. That's a little
All right.
teaser right there. Okay, but how do you cut through the noise with your content? How do you do it enough to get people to pay attention to where they're going to give the music a chance, and then at that point, all that work that you did to become a craftsman, a master craftsman of the song and the live performance,
Mhm.
and even your content, if you're doing great at creating content, which we've been preaching for years on this podcast, like enough that they'll start to consume that, and now you start to get a chance, and then you start to grow your audience. Hook points is the
Mhm.
answer. Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm
so
not
this
talking.
reminds me already of my wife Emily.
Uh-huh.
So I had met her one time briefly out at the Broken Spoke because her my now brother-in-law, her brother, Matt
Hmm.
Klein, buddy of mine, right? And
Hmm.
so she came to visit from Missouri and he was out playing at the Broken Spoke. So I went out to, support him, whatever, and go out and then he's like, hey, two of my sisters are in. So it was Jeannie and Emily. And so I walked over and said, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm Matt's friend, whatever, and walked back, I don't think Emily remembers that.
Hmm.
However, then a couple years later, she came to visit while Matt and I were roommates and stayed at my house for a week, and we married now.
You got some market penetration.
I had to, yeah, I got jokes. Yes, so it's like, how do you, how did I cut through the noise? I'm such a special case. God had to put her in my house for a week, like just like briefly passing by. Hey, I'm Matt's friend. How you doing? No impression.
Right.
I'm sure she thought she'd never met me before, you know. And same thing with me too. She, is oh, Matt's cute sisters are here. Cool. Hey, they're cute. Going back to Missouri now.
Sure.
And that was it. And then how do we cut through the noise? Reach and frequency.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Reach and
just
frequency. That's right.
made me think of that. Yes,
I
she
love
was
that.
finally within reach.
So yeah, and you could, and you had the moment to make the frequency happen. You had the time
Exactly,
frame
because
in
she was stuck at my house. Yeah.
it. So I'm not talking about when I say hook points, I'm not talking about melodic or lyrical hooks in your song, but the idea is the same, right? Like that lyrical hook, that melodic hook is an earworm that keeps you humming it over and over and over. It's
Mhm.
sticky, and these hooks are designed. The hooks that I'm talking about, hook points, are designed to get people to give your musical hooks a chance.
Mm.
Okay, and these hooks are designed to position a consumer where your music and your talent can do the talking, where you're going to get a chance to gain their attention and get a moment to flex your muscle and show them what you can do. At the end of the
Mhm.
day, that is the formula that it's always been for blowing up an artist brand. Get the art and the artist in front of new eyeballs, and as many eyeballs as often as possible, and let them do their thing, right?
Mhm.
And when you're able to make that happen, you if it's a competitive artist, if it's a compelling artist with competitive product, you are going to grow fans. It's that simple. It really is that
Mhm.
simple, right? So don't confuse a hook point with clickbait.
Mm.
It's easy to do because they kind of smell and look the same at first. They walk and talk the same, but clickbait is clicking through to useless content, right? To see pictures of the world's biggest rubber band ball or images of your favorite celebrity
Or it's a
who've had too much freaking plastic surgery,
yeah, or it's bait and switch. It's
Yeah.
clickbait and switch. It's not even about what they're
Yep.
thinking they're going to find. I've seen some of these recently, and I nominate them for the spammies. But in the Facebook feed where it's like, oh my gosh, Will Smith, confirms this about his son, or whatever, and
Yeah.
of course I don't click on it, but I'm like, nothing happened,
Yeah,
or it
that's
makes
something
it sound
else.
like his kid died or something,
Or his kid
and
turned gay or something, some big salacious thing, and it turns out his kid took the garbage out. And
he was
wow.
proud of him, couldn't believe he finally
Yeah.
did it. It's like blowing this thing out of proportion, and just to get me, I'm like, no, don't
Exactly.
do
Well,
that.
and so this is why I wanna be very clear on this, right? Um, hook points in the first 3 seconds of your content get people's attention and drive traffic to good, competitive, valuable content. Valuable meaning the content is inspirational, educational, or entertaining. So you could describe a hook point as clickbait, but with substance to back it up. And that's
Mm,
the important thing. Okay. Because
there
I
you go.
know artists are extremely leery, and understandably so, and rightly so, of being perceived as, a marketer, a slimy, smarmy used car salesman, a cheap clickbait distributor, or I even like what you said, Brent, clickbait and switch
Hmm.
distributor. It feels yucky. We don't freaking like it. And so we don't want to risk as artists being uh, even misconstrued as being over in that pile of people, right?
Right.
Because if it looks like in the beginning like it might be clickbait, there's going to be some people that are just going to assume we're full of shit, and that's not the case when you back it up with substance. So here's the bottom line: hook points are mission critical promotional tactics that you
Hmm.
need to learn how to do, and you're going to suck at first, okay? But you need to learn how to do it. So I'm going to give you just a couple quick examples of some really famous ones that are brilliant. And starting with, you remember that old actor, Ernest Borgnine?
Yeah, yeah.
You know who he is? Like,
The
I think he
Wild
was in,
Bunch. He was an Airwolf.
yeah, he's in Convoy, the movie. Remember with
Ah.
Chris Christopherson? He was like the bad sheriff, I think, or something.
Mhm.
So his wife back in the 70s, his wife Tova Borgnine, launched a perfume scent back in the
Okay.
1970s. And their ad agent threw a launch party at the Century Plaza Hotel in Los Angeles and put an ad in the newspaper. Here's the hook point: Tova Borgnine swears under oath that her perfume doesn't contain an illegal sexual stimulant. The subheadline: wife of famous movie star agrees to give away 10,000 samples just to prove it's safe to wear in public. More than 7,000 people showed up to the hotel. It would have been more than that if it wasn't for the fire marshals having to step in for public safety, because it was overfilling. And the Borgnines went from grossing $20,000 a month to $800,000 a month on that fragrance.
Wow.
So they had a great freaking fragrance, right? They
Mhm.
had good art, they had a good product, but it was the hook that launched it. It was the hook point. And the hook point in this case cut to the chase by cleverly focusing on exactly why people purchase perfume in the first place.
Right.
Isn't
What
that
are the
true?
what do they say the three main things that people buy for? Get laid, get paid, don't die.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
That's
one
right.
falls
The three main
firmly in the
verticals.
middle.
Yeah. So yeah, it's exactly right. It's finance, it's love, and it's finance,
Health and
love, and
longevity or
health,
something.
health and
Yeah.
wellness. Yeah. So Timberland boots. Here's another one. A guy named Ernest Lupinacci, who's the founder of the Anomaly Ad Agency. So you know what, guys? We're talking about some marketing stuff here.
Yeah.
Okay. And you need to know You need to know about this. This is not dirty. This is not gross. This does not devalue your music. In fact, it's the opposite. When this is done right, this is what adds value to your music, because more people are going to hear it. The more people that hear it, the more people that like it, the more people that like it, the more people that share it. And next thing you know, it's really freaking possible that you make a good living
Mm-hmm.
doing what you're born to do. Like a living where you can have a house and new cars and go on vacations and send your kids to college, you know? And live the life that you want to live, your best life, you know? So this one's Timberland boots. And here's the hook point. Your eyes are frozen. Your skin has turned black. You're technically dead. Let's talk boots. Okay. So this guy, Ernest Lupinacci, he researched hypothermia and brilliantly described what happens as he juxtaposed that dramatic information against
Mm-hmm.
the implied solution for hypothermia, Timberland boots, right? And that ad captured the attention of people who wish to engage in extreme outdoor activities without freezing to death. And and the rest of the copy in this magazine ad, Lupinacci like wrote an essay about hypothermia and wove in
Mhm.
a bunch of the different design elements of Timberland boots. But the hook was so good on this, nobody needed to read the essay. They got the
Yeah.
point, you know, and the boots sales went through the roof because, hey, these are not for show. This is
Mhm.
show business boots, not show friends, not show fashion. This is show business, you know, like this is for real outdoor people, right?
Mhm.
And so you know, from listening to the podcast here, you need to make content. You need to make consistent content. And you need to get good hook points on each piece of content that you put out,
Mhm.
right? In the same way, like Brent, you and I slave over um, email subject lines. Just
Yeah.
before we started recording this episode, the last thing I did on my show prep for this, which was literally 5 minutes before we pressed record, was come up with my cold open that we always have in the podcast.
Mhm.
And it was shite, you know, and Brent was like, uh, uh, you know, and I was like, okay. And so Brent, like really
I love you,
quickly,
brother, but I needed way too much coffee to understand that cold open.
yeah,
Yeah.
and help me craft that cold open, because guess what? That's the hook point that's going to get you to decide whether or not you're going to listen through the 5 minutes of blather we have, to use Brent's words, at the beginning of the episode to get to the meat and potatoes, right? Like that's the hook. And we crafted it, and I think we did it's far better than it was before we started, but I was so,
Well,
focused on putting the content
what
together.
is it Benjamin Franklin said when he wrote a letter to someone? He says, "Sorry for the length of my letter. If I'd had more time, it would have been shorter."
It was Mark Twain.
Mark Twain.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So that kind of
I
thing.
didn't.
But
Yeah,
also
sorry for the long letter. I didn't have enough time to write you a short one.
exactly, which is
That's
editing, right?
exactly right, though.
But also
So,
like the cold opens, they're the kind of the 3-second rule. Hopefully, get your attention right then, let you know what's up. But the other thing
mhm,
is, what is it focused on? It is hopefully focused on this is why you should listen. This is why this is going to help you. It's not why it's going to help us for you to listen. Not
yeah,
about us. It's about you. This is why you need to know
exactly.
about hook points
Good
because
point.
this is going to help you get more fans and make more money. That's not about us. That's about you, and that's probably why you're still listening.
Good point. And your point, your immediate comment was like, "There's a lot of 50-cent words in there,"
Yeah, I was like,
and
it lost
and
me.
and I was like, I knew you were right, because that was the last. I put no attention on that. That was the last thing I did. So I'm like, okay, and I just kind of shut up, and you started talking, and I just started making changes like immediately. You know what I mean? And we got a better hook point because of it, and that's going to result, no matter what, it's definitely going to result in increased consumption of this podcast episode than would have happened had you not stepped in and done that. That's a fact.
Mhm.
That's a fact. So did the hook point change the quality and the value of the information within this podcast? No,
No.
but more people are going to experience it now, because thank God you took the time and smack me around a little bit and help me craft that, which I'm grateful
Well, I
for.
owed you for, smacking me around on some of my event information pages. So you had
That's
it
right.
coming for helping me
That's
so
right. That's
harshly.
fair enough.
Love you, brother.
So so I love you too, man. So, you're gonna need to hook. You're gonna have to hook them in like the first 3 seconds of your content, right?
Mhm.
And To build a long-lasting brand, to have the storied artist career that you're dreaming of, okay? You can't just capture people's attention once, y'all. You're going to
Mhm.
have to put out consistent content and consistently capture people's attention with each piece of content. And when I say people's attention, I'm not just talking about cold audiences and new people that can become fans. You've still got to be able to do that to your current fans.
Mhm.
They still have to be made aware that something new is out, right? So it's important, I think, to break down a little bit the difference between uh, a tagline, a unique selling proposition, a mission statement, a purpose, and a hook point. So I'm
Mhm.
just going to give you a couple examples here that are really quick and I think easy to digest and easy to understand. Um, and I'm going to ask you some questions, Brent. Nike shoes. Okay, what's their tagline?
Just do it.
Just do it, right? Their unique selling proposition is their shoes.
Mhm.
Okay. Their mission statement. This is their mission statement to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world.
See, I didn't know their mission statement, but I don't need to. But now that you tell me that, I can see it
You
in
can
what they
see it,
do.
right?
Yeah.
Now, here's their purpose, different than the mission statement. Their purpose is to unite the world through sport to create a healthy planet, active communities, and an equal playing field for all. So that's their tagline. We know their unique selling proposition. We know their mission statement. We know their purpose. What's their hook, Brent? What do you think their hook is?
Mm.
This one's going to
Uh,
make you think a little bit.
yeah. I mean, the first thing I think of with Nike or Nike, however you say it, is the swoosh. That visual, the the brand, the little swoosh thing on the shoes.
But
But
what's the
what's
hook?
their
What's
hook?
going to get my attention? What's the hook?
Is it athletes? Pro
Yeah,
athletes? Famous athletes?
exactly right.
Yes.
Celebrity endorsements.
Boom.
LeBron James, Serena Williams, Kevin Hart, Michael Jordan, you know? So they are, I think, the number one brand. I think they spend over $6 billion a year in brand endorsements uh, for this. Okay.
They have a movie coming out called is Air maybe, but it's about the Nike. I think it's I want to say it's a Ben Affleck and Matt Damon movie about like Nike, Phil Knight, and those guys deciding to make the
Uh-huh.
Air Jordans.
Oh
And they're
yeah.
like, this kid was just drafted. You want to put this much money in making shoes about him? Blah blah blah. Anyway, sidebar. It looks
Oh, I
interesting.
want to check that out, dude. That
Yeah.
I mean, it's a brilliant thing. And just side note, by the way, when Nike first came out, do you remember what the hook was when it first came out before they started doing celebrity endorsements?
No, the only one I can think of is just do it.
They were the first ones to come out with a running shoe that had the waffle iron sole.
Oh, okay.
So that was the hook. It looked different and it looked really cool. And then they started doing celebrity endorsements like way back in the day, like Prefontaine, the runner, and
Mhm.
an Olympic person. And then they sort of adapted from there. That's a little side point. But so here's the thing: your hook points must evolve. And I want to the science behind this. I think it's important that artists understand this, right? Because I think it'll help separate the sort of icky emotion that so many artists have with promotion from the reality, right? So hook points must evolve because over time, culture and consumers change.
Mhm.
So the hook points must adapt to meet their needs, but the
Mhm.
core values of a brand like Nike will stay the same.
It's the difference between like what strategy and tactics or something.
Yeah. So the strategy is the same, tactics have to change, right? So with each new hook point, what Nike is and what they do doesn't change. The hook point does.
Mhm.
And another reason hook points must change is because markets become saturated and what was once clever and an effective hook point quickly becomes mundane, ineffective, and played out,
Yeah.
right? So, in other words, like when you're changing hook points all the time, it doesn't mean it's changing who you are. It doesn't mean it's changing your brand. It doesn't mean it's changing what you stand for.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean it's changing your art. We're just changing ways to get people's attention and then bring them into what is the quintessential you as an
Mhm.
artist.
So
Okay.
like on TikTok, all those so I'm playing my new single for my boyfriend for the first time. Here it is. We're in the car.
Yeah.
Right? Like the first couple times, you're like, oh, let's see what happens. This is for real, not staged at all, and completely 100% legit. And then, like the 5,000th time you've seen it that night while you should be sleeping, you're like, oh my gosh, if I see one more, he's hearing this song for the first time. Here it is. I don't care anymore.
And now that hook point, which worked,
Is
is now
slick
played
as a
out,
yeah,
right? Now it's
yeah.
played. So if you're doing that, you're already losing. You have to be the one innovating on the hook points. And let me just remind you, if if you believe in your heart and soul that there's a life for you and you can make a living as an artist,
Hmm.
there's a life for you as an artist, then you have to be a creative person. Am I right in that saying?
Yes.
Like you have. So don't underestimate your ability to be creative and
Hmm.
innovative over here. You just have to put some attention into it and you're going to have to work out that muscle. And just like when you first go to the gym or you first go back to the gym after a long absence,
Hmm.
and 2 days after that first workout, you're in freaking pain like you can't believe
Yeah.
because it's sore, because you haven't been working that muscle. Like that's going to happen. Okay. But, have some faith in yourself. So, you've heard us talk before about this on the podcast about this speaks to how powerful you can be now in the context of where the industry is, right? Where we have this crisis in music going on,
Hmm.
and nobody has created a solid, repeatable, dependable digital pipeline for marketing artists on a digital platform that was as reliable as terrestrial radio when terrestrial radio worked.
Yes.
Okay. Nobody's done it yet. And so uh, when we have this kind of paradigm shift, the Goliaths of the world are extremely weak. And, one of the things in this book that Brendan Kane talks about is the David versus Goliath story of Netflix versus Blockbuster.
Mm.
Netflix had better hooks, right?
Yeah.
They're like no late fees when they were sending out DVDs. And then all of a sudden they started it was the guy who started Netflix was on his way to the gym when it hit him, the subscription business model idea hit him,
Mm.
you know? Like instead of charging him, why don't we just charge him a subscription rate?
Yeah.
Like, let's just do that. And then there's no late fees and we'll just ship them back and forth. And all of a sudden, that's different than what you had to do at Blockbuster, which was, and by the way, that happened when the guy from Netflix, who started Netflix, rented a movie from Blockbuster. They said what the movie was. I forget what it was. And he was late bringing it back. And there's a $40 freaking late charge. And after he paid that and was pissed off about it, then he went to the gym. And that's when he was like, hey, hold on a second. Right.
Hmm.
So,
Because
so
I remember Netflix at the beginning. This is totally off the topic, but I think it was you could only you could only check out so many DVDs at a time, and you keep them as long as you wanted because there's
yeah.
subscription. But after you turn those in, then you can get more.
Yep. So you had to
Yeah.
return them to get more, but
Right.
hey, we're not gonna if you keep them for 3 months, it's all good. We're cool,
Well, yeah, we're good. We're still getting your 3 months payment.
It was so they innovated like a different hook point just on the physical DVD thing. And if you remember in a past episode, I told you that at one point Netflix had built up a subscription service now that was significant. They had, I think, like 1 million subscribers at $20 a month. Right. So that's $20 million a month. And they made themselves available for purchase to Blockbuster for $50 million. And Blockbuster turned them down. Well, 10 years later, Netflix's market cap is I think it's over $160 billion.
Whew.
Okay. And Blockbuster is bankrupt and they're toast and they're over. But Blockbuster, who was the far and away big giant Goliath, the number one, they owned movie rentals in the 80s and in the 90s, and their market cap I think got as high as $10 billion. And Netflix just smoked them. And at some point, what Blockbuster started to do was the same thing Netflix was doing. Okay, we're going to eliminate late fees now.
Hmm.
Okay, and they started doing copying Netflix, but at that point, it was too late. Like the hook
Yeah.
was better. So my point is, like even on a microcosm level, don't let the vastness and the sheer size of these numbers, Netflix versus Blockbuster, don't let that cloud the fundamentals of this. The fundamentals work on your feed
Mm-hmm.
as an artist. It's the same. And if you take this seriously and you go down this road, then you will begin to stick out and start to see more success. And man, there's nothing. I mean, what is there a better feeling than somebody you've never heard of who reaches out on a DM and it's just like, man, this song just seriously changed my life. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to tell you, like, I love this. You know what I mean? And is there? I can't think of better validation. That's more validation than a bank account. You
Yeah.
know. So there's a 5-point process for creating for getting into hook points here that we're going to go over right now. And Brendan Kane says, "Look, man, it's a simple process, but it's not easy,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's going to take practice. You're not going to come out of the box looking like a rock star. All right, you're going to have to make a bunch of mistakes, but if you put the time and energy and creative energy into this and start to go down this rabbit hole, this is maybe one of the most important skill sets you could possibly have. And the reason I say it's really important is because even if you're earlier on in your artistic journey and you're not a master of songwriting yet, and you're on your way to that, and you're not a master of knowing how to make a record, and you're on your way to that, and you're not a master of the live performance just yet, and you're on your way to that, this will get you more fans than someone who is that doesn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Let that sink in.
Hmm.
Okay. So, step one, study what works, right? Study book titles. The 4-Hour Work Week. Brent, you read that, right?
Got it on my shelf right over there. Yes.
Okay. So,
And he's tried other titles. He workshopped that title.
yeah. Yeah, he did.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the content, right? Is the content all about how to make $1 million and only work 4 hours a week?
And not really.
No, it's
No.
not. So it's great content about how to maximize your time, but the hook point sold the book,
Yes.
right? And to the point where, like, when people come up and they ask him questions in interviews, um,
Hey,
who's the
do you
author?
only work for Tim Ferriss? Hey, do you only work
Yeah,
4 hours a week? No.
yeah. He knows you didn't read the book now, right? He
Yeah.
knows you didn't read the book, but that's how hugely powerful that hook point was. That
Mm-hmm.
book does not have the impact on society that it has had. And so let me ask you, let's just talk about the value of the content for a second, Brent.
Okay.
You read the book.
Yes.
Can in less than 30 seconds, what did you get from it? Like, was it worth it?
Yes, for sure. It's about cutting away the essential or the non-essential to get to the essential. It is about how to get much more bang for your buck, like out of your time. How to delegate, eliminate, automate. If you could only work 4 hours a week at your job, how could you make that work to get
Right.
that done? So there's just so many principles in there, and there are a lot of tactical stuff in there that may not be as relevant years later. And I know there are updated editions of it, but it's the thought process, right? Of
Mhm.
going, okay,
It's
let's
a
do
framework. It's a framework of it, right?
right.
Like,
It's a framework of going, okay, what's my 80/20 here? And what can I delegate, eliminate, automate? How do I, it's not, instead of being, it's more important to be effective than it is to be efficient, and those sort of things. So yeah, there's
okay.
just so many frameworks that I still carry with me into what I'm doing in like both sides of my business, songwriting pro and songwriting.
So this book, the content in this book was you would say is valuable to you and has, changed your life for the better
Yes.
in some way, right?
Yes. Without a
Okay.
doubt.
So, um, the point is, because of the hook point, there's so many more people that have experienced what you experienced, Brent, about that
Mhm.
book.
Yes.
It's helped more people because of the care they took on the hook point.
Mhm.
So as good as it, so did the hook point devalue the
No.
content and the change in your life? No, it's probably what made you pay attention to it and give it a shot.
Mhm.
right? What's this about, right? It's like winning before you're spinning on a song title, right?
Right.
That's
Yep.
the hook point. So, another book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, The
Mhm.
Counterintuitive Approach to Living a Good Life, right? Is this book about being apathetic to life? No. But it's about where you need to place value and where you not need to place value, you know?
Mhm.
Like, if you're worried about what the Joneses think right down the street about you, and these people don't give a crap about you, well, any energy you spend worrying about that is a waste of your time. It's non-productive in your life, you know?
So it's
And
selective wise apathy.
yeah, yeah, and so you
But
see the hook point there, right?
if the title of the book were "Selective Wise Apathy to Improve Your Life," you're like, but
Yeah,
the
wah,
title,
wah.
"Subtle Art of Not Giving an F," that gets your attention.
Yeah, or how about, the 4-hour work week, right? Like, here's how to become more efficient and focus on what matters and
Yeah,
no, there's no hook, right?
right.
What's the hook? So
4-hour
you
work
wanna
week,
look
that
at what
sounds fun. I'd like to do that.
exactly, yeah, 4-hour work week, you have my attention, go on,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So, look at social content, meme cards, headlines, concepts. I want you to look at them, and I want you when something grabs your attention, just take a moment and breathe and ask yourself why.
Mhm.
Why do I like that? What happened, right? Just start to get your antenna up and pay attention and start asking questions. Look at launch campaigns like, the Tova Bor 9 scent launch story. Another sort of launch campaign that happened, I think of real quick is Wham. They couldn't break into America. They were a
Mhm.
huge selling artist in Europe, and that happens a lot, by the way, where American artists can't break over in Europe, or big, huge European artists that are just rock stars over there, like
Mhm.
household names, and we have no idea who they are over here because they can't figure out how to cross the pond. That's where Wham was until they were like the first band to the first Western pop artist to tour China,
Yeah.
communist China. And that all of a sudden became the news and became the hook. And then everybody gave it a listen. And guess what? It was great and everybody loved it. And they sold another 10, 20 million records.
Yeah.
So, look at article headlines, look at TV commercials, look at social ads. And now I'm going to give you like a really awesome, awesome freaking value add right here. Facebook.com/ads/library. I'm going to put this link into the show notes.
Mhm.
Facebook.com/ads/library. This is where you can go and search for a subject and see what ads are on Facebook running right now
Hmm.
and see what they're doing. So you can see what makes people click, right? How are they structuring the ad? Like, I'll give you an example that I've used before on the podcast, the Dry Bar Comedy Troupe, right? This is
Hmm.
a company that promotes um, comedians, and they create content that it has incredible hook points because they are understanding how it's consumed within a feed, and a social media feed is where they're promoting the content. So when you scroll through your feed, you see here's a comedian, he's got a microphone, he's standing on a stage, this is clearly a comedy thing,
Mhm.
and the video starts playing right away. There's subtitles there. Why are there subtitles? Because most people are doing this when they're not supposed to at work, so the
Mhm.
sound is off. And what they pulp fiction the edit. That's the hook point. They pulp fiction and they start with the punchline,
Mhm.
and so you see the punchline in the subtitle and you're like, "Wait, what?" And you already know from the setup that this is a comedian, and so this is supposed to be funny, right? Like,
Yeah.
what it's supposed to be. And then here's this punchline that's just, and then the elephant crapped out a purple Twinkie, and you're like, "Wait a second, what?" And you
Yeah.
stop, and now that's the hook, and
Mhm.
then you're gonna watch that little 5-minute performance from that comedian, right?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, you're turned on to that comedian, and guess what? He's coming to your town. That's why it's in your feed.
Right.
Okay? Do you see this? So,
We do
you
that a
know
little bit on songs, doing the overture with some songs that where you start off the song with like part of the hook,
Yep.
or even if it's not like a chorus first song, you part of the hook, or even we've done part of the bridge before, something that's really super catchy. I mean, that's the old rock thing of that riff that is just stuck in your head or whatever it is to make that promise to you. So that's like, in a way, when we do that, we're giving away part of the punchline at the very beginning of the song, and then we're
Yeah.
launching into the verse. But you're like, "Ooh, that was that was tasty. I want
Super
to hear
popular
this."
way to super popular way to write a song, right? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sorry, it's a very common way that very popular. I mean, I think about Renegade, you know, "Oh, mama, I'm in
Mhm.
fear for my" 2 hooks, right? One is it's an a cappella opening,
Yeah,
and 2, it's the chorus, you know, and it's like, "What?" Like, "Oh my god, I love
it
this." Like,
just
"Let's
cuts through
go,"
the
right?
noise because it has no noise.
So, you know, applying this kind of structure, think about how many times have we talked about, like, creating interview content,
Mhm,
right? Like, on how you wrote the song, why you wrote the song, what's happening, and then having that hook, the musical hook, the
mhm.
chorus in the background while you're telling the story, right? So now what's the hook on the story? Where's the sound bite,
Yeah,
right? Like, if somewhere in this story you're talking about how you were 8 years old and you watched your dad blow his head off with a gun, and that's what turned you into an artist,
well,
right? Lead with that.
yeah.
That's the hook, right? That's where you start out. Put a subtitle there. This is what I mean by hook points, okay?
Like, we walked
And
into the house and we knew right away that somebody was dead.
yeah,
What?
you know, or whatever the song like,
Yeah.
it could be funny, it doesn't have to be dark, you know, but just something that has, like, you're like, "Wait, what?" And now I wanna hear this story,
Mhm.
and then while I'm listening to the story, what am I also hearing? The song. And now your hook point has worked, and you've got me consuming it. And now how many times can you do that before I get to 7 and before I begin to start to like you,
Well,
right? There it is.
I was thinking about when you said, because I've heard a story from my buddy Steve Leslie. He did a recent Know the Pro with us over at Songwriting Pro, but he was telling the story of that song Second Wind, which was a song for Daryl Worley, country song,
Mhm.
and where he was playing a show, and a lady came up and told him how that song basically saved her life. She was in an abusive relationship, and she heard that song on the radio,
Mm.
and she got up and she left. And now she's down in Florida and she's remarried and that sort of thing. Like, there's a story there. If you lead with
Wow.
that going, she said the song changed her life and that changed everything about how I look at my own song. Here it is, or whatever. And you kind of tell the story,
Yep.
and there's something there.
And okay, now how about this? How about this, artists? Okay? You got a song like that, something like that? If Daryl Worley and his team and his label didn't have good hook points and didn't market that effectively, the word
Hmm.
that you hate, the
Hmm.
word that makes you feel icky and smarmy, is that woman alive?
Maybe not.
Is she living her best life?
Definitely not.
Just let that sink in,
Yeah.
okay? It's your duty to do better on hook points here. Also, look at print ads, you know, and make sure you look at that. Okay, step 2. We gotta get going because 'cause we're running behind here.
Yes.
Step 2, learn from what doesn't work,
Hmm.
right? If it's too wordy, if it's confusing, if it's vague, if it's overused or too commonly used by other companies, like if you're now trying to just get on the TikTok thing, to your point, Brent, and here I'm playing this song for my girlfriend the first time, and here we are, and but you know, like it's I've already seen this, is what I'm thinking to
Right.
myself. Even though it's a different person and a different song,
It's
I
all
know
the
how this movie
same.
ends.
Right.
Yeah, right. And this is a really important one here, guys, especially on digital marketing. If it's not relevant to a specific audience,
Hmm.
so your hook point, you know, maybe you're a country artist, right? And maybe you've got a country artist with a specific song that is about a specific subject matter, right? So it's maybe about alcoholism, or maybe it's about true love, or maybe it's about great sex, or maybe it's about your best friends, like those boys did, "Drinking on My Mind," right? Like,
Hmm.
it's about that. Well, if you're coming from a position on marketing that the hook point is about country music and you're trying to do that on digital, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Because you know what's going to talk to me is if there's a hook point in there about the specific subject matter of the song.
Like, for example, the song Pontoon by Little
Mhm.
Big Town or Redneck Yacht Club by Craig Morgan. Both songs about like pontooning.
Yeah.
There's a market you can tap into, people that have expressed interest in that sort of thing. You can find them. And if you
Yep.
serve it up correctly, they're in because you're like, I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's like Lindsay Kirkendall says that the riches are in the niches, bitches, you know,
That's
like
right.
that. So, what's the niche on the song, right? And then how can you develop a hook point from that that would
Hmm.
be like, "Oh, okay," you know? So, what else doesn't work? Outdated or tone deaf in today's culture or society. This is probably maybe the one of most egregious things that I see artists do specifically, is that your hook point assumes that people are already interested in the
Mm.
topic being you. Too many
Hmm.
artists assume that everybody should be interested in their music and their brand because they're good or even because they're great.
Hmm.
And I get that thought process. And so many of you are correct in assuming that once somebody has come to experience your music and your brand and your artistry enough,
Hmm.
that they're going to fall in love with you because that's been your artist experience, right? The people who do like you now and do respond to you who have been around you enough times to take that in have just fallen head over heels for you as an artist, right?
Hmm.
So I see where you come from on that, but you can't assume that they're interested before they know who you are.
Right.
You can't assume that they're interested after being exposed to you once or twice.
Hmm.
That's not how the relationship happened with your current fans who know you and love you and show up to your shows. They have had way, way, way more exposure to you than once or twice.
Hmm.
Okay. And so it's wrong to think that because it's good, that they're just going to catch on right away.
Right.
There needs to be more consistency. So the other thing is inauthentic. Don't be inauthentic. Don't be opportunistic. Right. Like one of the examples that Brendan used was at one point during the Me Too movement, Gillette, who sells razors,
Hmm.
right, got into an ad that was sort of trying to touch on toxic masculinity during the frickin' Me Too movement,
Hmm.
and it was a shit show, you
Yeah.
know, because that's not what Gillette is about, and
Right.
and they don't profess to be about that, and so it failed miserably and made them look stupid
Hmm.
as a hook point, as opposed to, and I've got my opinions on this, but we can't deny the success of Nike and Colin Kaepernick.
Hmm.
Nike's a little bit, their brand is a little bit more toward that. They're down that road. You know what I
Right.
mean? So therefore, that whole play that they made with Colin Kaepernick, love it or hate it, was on brand for Nike. It was
Hmm.
off brand for Gillette, and then because it was off brand for Gillette with the toxic masculinity, it feels cheap, inauthentic, and opportunistic, and it's a turnoff. And guess what? You're now the smarmy, crappy salesman that you were so afraid to be, right?
Hmm.
And the final thing of what not to do is if it's not catchy, if it doesn't stand out enough, it's got to be clear and concise. And artists have to be careful. It's like I've been working with the Dirty Names, like a rock band with Harrison Kofer's band. I love these guys. They're great. And they are just embracing full on, like we are making content, boatloads of content, and they are working their butts off. And there's a process of refining that. And the first things they're sending. So I am, what I'm about to tell you about them is how proud I am of them. These guys are just, they're learning, they're refining, they're becoming better at flexing this muscle. But
Hmm.
in the beginning, just like I promised you at the beginning of the show, they sucked at it. The first show poster looked like somebody vomited on a freaking show poster. I can't even see. I know who the F is playing on the show, and I can't find it on the poster, and I'm looking at it. How the
Right.
hell are you going to, how the hell is anybody else who doesn't know who's playing, who doesn't know what's going on, going to understand that because it was so busy? You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's got to stand out. It's got to pop. It's got to be clear. Your font has to be readable, right?
Hmm.
Instantly readable, 3 seconds. So step 3, create your own. And here's a great exercise. You're going to be, you get a call from the editor of Rolling Stone magazine because you're about to become my personal hero and you're about to get a bucket list item that I always dreamed of my whole life that somebody's never, ever, ever, ever going to be able to take away from you. They're going to put you and only you as the artist on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. Okay.
Hmm.
Here's a question. What do you want your headline to be?
Ooh.
What do you want your headline to be? Right.
Brent
So
Baxter.
here's
Check it out.
exactly. So it's a headline exercise that I want you to do. And this is sort of similar in in the approach to like what we do with Song Title Challenge, right? Dig down and write
Mhm.
25 different headlines. This is your action item for this episode. 25 different Rolling Stone headlines. And you know what? I want to invite everybody who's in the C.L.I.M.B community to post their headlines
Mm.
for their Rolling Stone magazine. And can we make a post of that, Brian? Can we have, or Brent, can we have maybe
Brian.
Ren do that or some? I don't know why I said Brian.
I don't
I
even
was
know who
thinking
you're
Brent
talking
and Ren, and it went to Brian, and it was weird. And
uh,
I'm embarrassed.
yeah,
But you
no,
know,
yeah, we can do one. I have my American Songwriter magazine here, and it has Macklemore on the cover. So
mhm.
Macklemore finding his purpose, and then a quote: "When I go in, I go hard." Interesting. Like, oh, what's going on there? Van Morrison returns with explosive spirit on new album. Elle King finds her home in country music. Paramore, their first album in 6 years. Dierks Bentley quote: "I feel like I'm always a student of songwriting." All right, those are headlines, right?
Those are good. So what I want you to do, and this is something like when I was writing blogs that I got very, very seriously into doing, is okay, now you've got a blog. You've written this blog, there's valuable content in there. The headline is what's going to be the hook. And so you have to dig, right? Because I'll tell you the first like 15 headlines you write are going
Mm-hmm.
to suck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be where the low hanging fruit is, that is mundane, overused, overplayed, but you have to get them out. You have to exercise that
Yeah.
demon, right? And get that out. And then when you start running out of ideas is when you really start to get creative. So I want everybody to, and post this. We'll put a post up, and I'll put something when we post the episode, that just says,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, put your Rolling Stone headline below and comment on this and put your headline below."
Yeah.
But come up with at least 25 headlines first, okay, on your Rolling Stone headline, and use your name and what the headline will say, and then start looking at what happens on the 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th headline. That's when they're
Yeah.
going to get good. Okay.
And
So create your own. Step
you
three.
can treat this also like, we do the song title habit we've talked about a bunch. Every day I come up with the song title. Got one of those
Mhm.
line a day calendars. What if you apply that to other things like this? This is my headline. I'm gonna come up with a headline a day, and that's just part of my process. I come up with a headline a day. Or this month I'm focusing on headlines. Next month I'm going to focus on song titles. Next month I'm going to whatever that is. Like, why can't that be a thing that you just consistently kind of work that thing out?
Yep. Yeah.
Just
So, all right. So, step four, compare your hook points. So, in the same way that songwriters, when they're starting out and they're amateur, believe that because they have this feeling in their heart and they talk about loving you in the moon in June,
mm-hmm.
and there's just nothing there. And, they feel something, but they're not communicating it very well. And that's the rub, right? That's where the craftsmanship comes in, to where you can take somebody who has no idea what you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling because they can't feel what you're feeling, but you can so effectively describe it to them that you make them feel that way too.
Yeah.
All right. So compare your hook points, create that Rolling Stone headline. And if you're having trouble being sort of honest with yourself to determine which ones are best, right? Because sometimes it takes work sometimes to know the difference between being prideful on completing a song and then understanding that these three songs, this is an A song, this is a B song, this is a C song.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and knowing which ones are better than others. So ask a friend, ask family, ask
Post it.
around.
Post it in the climb community.
Yeah. Love
What
it.
we're here for.
Love it. I love that. Yes. So then step five, test and innovate. When we're doing our corporate marketing, I'm creating ads that drive traffic to this very valuable webinar about wealth protection and
Mm-hmm.
taxes, right? And how to be a student of the game in that regard for retirees. I have an ad that I know I want to put together. The ad is designed to tell you what's in the webinar, why it matters to you, and there's a call to action. So the chassis, if you will, of that ad, the meat and potatoes of it is exactly the same. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll have 6 to 8 different ads that have a different 3 to 5 second hook at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, because I'm going to test them. I don't exactly know which ones are going to
Mm-hmm.
resonate, which ones they're going to respond to, and which ones they're not going to respond to. And
Right.
I am not so foolish and egotistical as to believe that I'm right. So I'm just going to test them, run those ads simultaneously, and they're going to tell me which one works better.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, so when you're doing this stuff, guys, you want to be constantly testing different hooks and just even if you're doing it organically, man, like which one's got more reach, which one's reach more people. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's working. So let's go down that road and continue to do that. So those are the 5 steps there. Your biggest challenge, guys, to wrap this up. I know we went a little long, but I think it's really important. Experience and perspective. You can't get that until you start doing it. You know, you need to be outside the box on your thinking. Stop trying to copy the music business. Stop trying to copy what other people are doing on TikTok. By the time you do that, it's already been played out. And what was a really great hook that you can recognize as a great hook has now become played out.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to do something differently. Your other challenge is going to be time, research and analysis, development, iteration. But make the time the same way, Brent, that you say you got to make a time for your song title
Habit.
habit, and then you have to make the time for a song title challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's part of the craftsmanship. You don't just walk into a room and start painting the walls.
Right.
You got to move some furniture out or cover it up. You got to tape down the hardwood floors. You got to put the trim tape down. There's craftsmanship to painting a room correctly. And if you don't do a song title habit, and if you don't do a song title challenge, then it will directly affect the outcome of that song in a negative way. You will not have as good a content, a good a song as you could have. And the same thing goes for this concept here with hook points. Okay. Another obviously challenge is going to be money. If you're investing in the wrong hook points or trying to force an ineffective hook point, I think that's where a lot of people get screwed too. Like and that of course affects your perception of how far your money's going to go. Because I've tried this before and it didn't work. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze. Well, maybe that's because your hook point sucked,
Mm-hmm.
and that money all of a sudden, if you have success, is going to go a lot farther. And now you're going to change like, oh, this is worth investing in, right? I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, obviously creative resources, right? You're going to have to be your own copywriter, your own producer, your own editor, your own designer. But learn how to do this stuff, because I don't care how good your freaking music is. I don't care how good of an artist you are. It won't matter if nobody's going to hear it, and nobody's going to hear it if you don't have the hook points. All right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the end.
That's
So,
the end.
all right, guys. Listen, man, go to, unscramble your brain from broadcast. I got a free gift from you. Go to giftfromjohnny.com, JOHNNY, and download the free PDF, Whoever Owns the Traffic Rules the Road. The more hook points you have, the more traffic you're going to create, the more you're going to rule the road, and the more other cash registers open up and make this whole thing a reality for you, to where you can, in short order, replace the money that you're making on your side hustle with actual revenue from your artist career. That's what I want to see you do. So giftfromjohnny.com, join the C.L.I.M.B community. Don't forget your homework on the Rolling Stone headline. Tell a friend about it. This podcast exists because we want you to win. So keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.